If you're selling Amari Cooper, that means other people are probably for sale. And it made sense to sell Amari because of the things we already talked about with his age and his contract and stuff. But do you think there's other guys on the Browns that make sense to move right now? I know some names in the Zadarius Smith. The Detroit Lions are probably going to be looking for an edge rusher with Aiden Hutchinson going out in the way that they're playing. And they're primed to make their run this year. San Francisco looks more beatable than ever. The Rams are having a down year. Like, it looks like the NFC is Detroit's to lose right now. I don't think they're going to sit on their hands and just be like, well, our defense will figure it out with Aiden. So you've heard guys like
the pie in this.
I've heard Joel.
The pie in this guy's Myles.
Huh?
The pie in this guy's Myles. The pie in this guy's Myles for them. Like, I got tons of Detroit Lions fans where I grew up. You're a Lions fan, you're a Browns fan, maybe a couple Bills fans in there. And they're all like, hey, what would you give up for Myles? At this point, for me, like, I still don't even want to handle, like, talking about this rebuild. Like, I'm, like, not there yet. I know we're not good. I get it, everybody. I don't want to trade anybody. I didn't even want to trade Cooper today. Still dealing with that crap. And, to get Myles Garrett off the Browns, you're looking at what? 2 first-rounders? And I don't know even if they have the cap space, because I just pulled it up while you were talking. He's owed, like, the value of his contract is $125 million. So on average per year, it's $25 million that he's getting. He's guaranteed 44 of it. Do they have that kind of space? I don't think so.
Well, look what we've made work. They'd figure it out. I guess, obviously, the logical things, if you're the Browns, like Zadarius Smith is probably available. I don't think the Browns would trade Joel Bitonio, at least not without going to him and asking him if he wants traded. I feel like he's going to get the Joe Thomas treatment. And if you kind of remember the last few years of Joe Thomas's career, I felt like there's a lot of talk about him going to Indy. I think Peyton was even actively recruiting him, trying to get him in Indy for his last few years there. And I feel like the Browns, they were like, do you want to go? If you want to go to Indy, we'll get you there, and he wanted to stay. He
didn't want to go.
And I feel like they'll give Joel's kind of earned that with the Browns. I feel like they'll give him the same treatment. If they're even thinking about entertaining offers for him, they would go to him and ask him if that's what he wanted. And I feel like he would also have a say on destination. Like, yeah, if you can get me here, I would consider something like that. So I don't know. I don't think they would just up and trade Joel. I do think Wyatt Teller could be a guy that they would trade. I love Wyatt Teller, but he hasn't necessarily been a guy who's going to warrant that kind of power in the front office, like being asked if you want to be traded. There's other guys out there that I think could potentially be traded. We talked about this a lot in Discord today. There's people like the Myles thing, because I think the Lions are going to want to make a big move. I don't think they want to replace Aiden Hutchinson with a role player. I've heard Max Crosby, and and knowing, which to me might be easier for them, because I think the Raiders are in sell mode, and they would also be willing to trade him. But Max Crosby is kind of what to the Raiders is what Myles Garrett is here. He has a Raider tattoo. He's all about Vegas Raiders. So trading him is kind of like trading the heartbeat of the team. And we kind of went back and forth.
He loved Devontae, though, man. He loved Devontae.
Yeah.
Maybe that's his thing. Did you want to hear the high value contracts I think that you might want to get rid of?
You can, for the Browns, you mean?
Yeah. So I would think you'd want to get rid of Thornhill.
Oh, for sure.
Zadarius Smith, you already mentioned. You'd want to get rid of, probably not Judy. I don't know about Tomlinson. Do you still want to pay him? Is he doing anything for you? And Jack Conklin. And some people are saying Denzel Ward. You could get by with Newsome, and you can get by with Emerson, and you get Cam. What's his last name? Yeah, Mitchell. Thanks. And you can get by with those three, and then everybody else backing them up.
So here's my thing. I think I'm not trading Denzel Ward, and just to touch on the Myles thing real quick. Like we talked about this a lot in the Discord, and some people in the Discord said they would 100% listen to offers for him. And some people said, absolutely not. You never trade Myles Garrett. And I can see both sides to this argument. And in my pushback, I guess I'll start this so people don't freak out. I don't want to trade Myles Garrett. I want him to retire a Cleveland Brown, because he's one of the best Cleveland Browns ever. He's one of the best players in the NFL. I love how invested he is into Cleveland. Minority owner of the Cavs. You just go to a Cavs game. There's a good chance you're going to see Myles Garrett there. I don't want to trade Myles Garrett. That being said, having Myles Garrett doesn't equate to wins. He's played on some of the worst teams in NFL history, and he's been great for all of them. And we went 1-31, and now we are 1-5. We've been under 500 for more seasons than we've been over 500 in his career. Having Myles Garrett when you don't have the quarterback and other things around him, it doesn't equate to wins. It's like having Joe Thomas for 15 years. It doesn't equate to wins if you're so to say you're holding on to him because you don't want to give up, you don't want to go into full rebuild mode. Even if you keep him, there's a chance you're in full rebuild mode because his position doesn't equate to wins per se. That doesn't mean I want to trade him. Again, I want him to retire Cleveland Brown. But I think if Detroit calls you and says, we'll give you 2 first and 2 second, you have to seriously at least entertain that because, again, like you're at the point now because of where you're at in the salary cap situation with the guaranteed money, unless you can get somebody to take his contract like Brock Osweiler, like we did for Brock Osweiler. We're not going to have a lot of money to play with in terms of adding pieces. You're going to need cheap labor, cheap talent. We are going to need to accumulate draft picks to survive the next 1 to 3 years if we want to add talent to this team. So I would 100% entertain that. And then just in Myles, I know he will never say he wants to leave Cleveland, and maybe he really doesn't. And I would ask him, and if he really, really doesn't, then I wouldn't do it no matter how many picks they offered us. But at least part of me goes, imagine seeing Myles get to play for Dan Campbell up in Detroit on that defense with that offense on a Super Bowl contender. How much fun would that be for him? And I'd go buy a Detroit Myles jersey and root for him on his way to a Super Bowl that he deserves to play in. He doesn't deserve to be here for another dumpster fire season. So I can see both sides. I don't want to trade him, but I can see both sides of the argument. And if you're the Lions, you'd be getting you'd be upgrading from Aiden Hutchinson, which you wouldn't think is possible, but you would be.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely buy what you're selling me there. However, I still want to throw my fist down on the floor like a little baby and cry and scream and say, no, don't go. Right. But yeah, I don't want him to go, but I see the value in that too. The only other guy that I can think of that you might want to move, and you might have to put a milk carton with his face on it, is Elijah Moore. I haven't seen much of him. Doesn't do much. I don't know what you could get for him, if anything. Again, it'd be like you'd be selling it as we were sold, like he's not in the right offense, but he's never been in the right offense, and I don't know what you would get for him. On the flip side of that, go ahead.
He's a guy who's kind of been I don't know how good he is. But it's so hard to evaluate wide receivers when he played in Nathaniel Hackett's offense with Zach Wilson, and then he played in an offense led by Deshaun Watson this year. It's just. Do I think he's a great? No, I don't. He might not even be good, but it's so hard to really tell based on what he's got to do so far in his career. I think you'd be lucky to get a 6th.
Yeah, I think that's fair. In getting or moving on from Cooper, ultimately we have to move on with our receiver core, right? So our receiver core is going to shape out with Judy, Sedtill, Thrash, and Moore. I don't see those guys or anything getting better. One of the things going on there, the trending topics is, well, Thrash and Sedtill will get more time. And I'm like, more time for what? More time to run routes and not get a ball? More time to, maybe practice their uncatchable catches? Are they going to look like Odell Beckham catching every single one because they're so off target? I don't get how this is going to make anybody any better. And to get back what we were saying about you get rid of your best receiver, you're going to say, okay, well, we're going to develop these guys, but we can't get the ball out. And we got the quarterback with the worst rated RPA or EPA in decades, so I don't see anything getting better. So, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
So I do want to see Cedric Tillman, and I really want to see Jamari Thrash play. And I know he hasn't been playing. He was injured, I think, at one point. I don't know if he's back healthy and he just hasn't been playing because we've had so many wide receivers. He just isn't getting the time. I think at this point, so if you would have asked me 3 weeks ago, I'd have said let's put Jameis in and try to get some wins. If you're selling Amari Cooper and whoever else we decide to get rid of in the next few days to weeks, it's DTR time. Like,
yeah,
I feel bad for Jameis just skipping him, but Jameis isn't part of the future here, more than likely. So you put DTR in, and he either comes out and he plays well enough that maybe you decide to use him maybe he's the future. I don't think he's the future, but maybe he's the future. Or maybe he plays well enough where you think he can be a bridge quarterback and you can take Travis Hunter in the first round this year instead of going quarterback, and then you wait for your quarterback the next year. Or he plays well enough and you still want to take a quarterback, but now you can trade him for a third or fourth or fifth round pick or something to be somebody's backup somewhere or to somebody who needs a bridge quarterback. Like, you got to put him in. Playing Deshaun, we know what we have. It's garbage. Jameis Winston, as much as I would have loved to have seen Jameis play 3-4 weeks ago when the season wasn't lost, and because I think he would give us a chance to win. But now the goal of the season is completely changed. One, the goal is to make sure you get a top 3 draft pick. And I know Browns fans don't want to hear that, but I don't want to win that many games going forward because I want to make sure we can get one of the top 3 guys in this coming draft. A guy who can change the franchise, a guy who can take this from being a full-on rebuild to it being a soft rebuild. That's the difference. If you somehow rattle off wins and you finish with the 9th pick, I mean, maybe you'll do it, but you got a lot better shot if you're in the top 3. I watched the Texans go from worst team in football to contender because they got the quarterback right. Okay.
Oh man, if we could have hindsight, man, if we could took those picks and get C.J. Stroud, man. But I mean, what are you going to do?
It doesn't have to
spill milk.
It doesn't have to be a full rebuild. If you lose your games, get a top 3 pick, and you hit on that pick, it doesn't have because if we don't trade Myles, we don't trade Denzel Ward. You got Myles, you got Denzel Ward, you got JOK. You got a good young core still under contract. Like
Delpit's still good, man.
Yeah, Grant Delpit. It doesn't have to be a full-on rebuild, tear it to the studs, 0-16, 1-15 kind of rebuild. If you got your core intact, like your main core, if you can just add some pieces and you actually hit on your draft picks, we can be good again next year. This can be a one-year thing.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, absolutely.
I feel like the goal for this year is to now we're already looking to the future, and I know it sucks. Trust me, we didn't expect to be here, but now it's all about seeing what we got. So yes, if Jamari Thrash is, I'd put Judy in my 1, I'd put Tillman in my 2, I'd put Thrash out there, and those would be the guys run every single route because those are the guys who you need to see if Tillman's worth keeping around. You need to see if Thrash is worth keeping around. Judy's going to be here because we just extended him. But I don't think Judy's a 1. I think he can be a very serviceable 2 with a good quarterback and a good offensive system and with a good 1 beside him. I think if Jerry Judy's your 1, it's probably not going to be a very explosive offense.
This episode is sponsored by My Patriot Supply. Hey, Dog Pack, we do a lot of fun promos on the show, but let me ask you a serious question this time. Do you think the world's going in the right direction, or, does it kind of feel like a lot of things are falling apart? Hurricanes, tornadoes, natural disasters. We just had a pandemic, foreign wars, threats of escalated conflicts. It could be a lot, guys. I get it. And if you're feeling alarmed, you're not alone. Your views, one way or another, they don't change the fact that we all need to be prepared for our families, and that starts with having an emergency food supply. We're living in crazy times, and that's why so many people are making sure their homes are prepared and stored with food. And right now, you can get yourself and your family ready with a 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. It comes with delicious foods like creamy stroganoff, honey wheat bread, cheesy broccoli soup, spaghetti, chili mac, even pancake mix. The entire kit offers 2,000 calories every day, and the food lasts up to 25 years. Who knows what things will look like then? But if that dreaded day does come, you will be ready. Go to thedogspodcast.com/patriot right now to order your 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Protect your food situation for things like extended power outages, cyber attacks, natural disasters, quarantines, even things like job loss and income reduction, whatever the situation might be. Make sure that your most basic needs are covered so that you can focus on whatever else you need to do. That's thedogspodcast.com/patriot to order your 3-month emergency food kit now from My Patriot Supply.